tell this story about how one time my grandmother was telling me that when your time comes, she said there was two things, that my last battle in life would be over water.
Mm.
I was about 14. I remember this. Because my grandmother was a bear woman, so a lot of the things that we're talking about was, about this male's role in battle. But she tells me it's not going to be a battle that kind of used with guns, stuff like that. But it's going to be, your last battle is going to be over water. And I remember thinking, well, I'm sure glad I'm not going to live to see that day. Right. And of course, I died. And now I'm back. But the understanding of the battle is not about warring, but it's more of a loving, more bonding, what you might call a warrior's heart type of battle. Right. And so when that time of that place where I need to get ready to prepare myself of the equipment, or what do I carry in my arsenal? My grandmother told me there's going to come when it comes to that time, she goes, it'll be easy as you reaching up and grabbing an apple off of the tree. Right? So after giving that some deep thought, I realized that I saw one apple off of one tree when she saw an orchard. Mm. And right now, when I'm getting ready to do this, preparing for this walk and stuff, all this support, where did it come from? It just starts falling out of the sky. Almost to the point now where a lot of things I wanted to do physically, on my own, that I can't do, but all these other people are now stepping in and saying, well, you could just make a little walk and then we could do the rest. So that's where I'm holding it. And so my intention now is to go from community to community, reservation to reservation, find a sponsor, find an elder, find a high school and a grade school students that are willing, because the way I predict it is, it's going to be at least 5 years, so it's not going to be a quick thing to complete the walk, and then another 5 years to add it to develop some type of legislation.
Now, where's the walk going from and to?
I got the washer springing right. I don't know if you could hear that. From the Colorado River, from San Luis, Mexico, to Moab, Utah. And the reason why I'm just going to stop at Moab, because it becomes almost impossible, to walk along the river. Although I've had some other individuals say, well, we can walk the rest of the way. We'll find a way to get to the source. And we'll see what that comes to. So my intention is to start it here locally. And then fortunately, I have relatives on all the reservations going up to Colorado.
Wow.
Yeah. So the battle for water is to understand, the energetic bloodline. That's what holds us together. Mm. And again, like how, interestingly enough, the evolution of water, how quickly it can transform itself again if we just stop imposing and adding things to it. It's regenerative. It'll change. Even speaking those soft words of love into that water changes it. See, it'll change. And but we all need to have an understanding of how intimately we're connected to. We all are. We're all connected to it. Our life source, our lifeblood. And again, a good conductive Water is one of the best, except for gold and copper and silver, but water is like there, really there. So that's the intentions for the next at least 5 years of my life here. And some of the I have this fellow Rob, who's a scientist. He works with the University of Arizona down here in Utah. So he's hooked up with me, and he's going to present the scientific properties of water, and I'm going to be talking about the bio nature of water. In other words, a spiritual connection. So that's how we're going to move that dance. That's the dance we're going to take. Yeah. And my intention was to do it before I got this cold. So every Sunday we have a drumming circle, and I introduced it there before I got the cold. So next Sunday I'm just going to pick it up again. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to do a seed walk here. Who wants to come with me? And that'll be the beginning of it.
What's the seed walk?
That means that's where I intentionally plant the seed that my grandmother put into me about the respect of water.
Okay.
Yeah. So you might say, like, I'm the seed.
Mm.
I initially, because my grandmother spoke it to me, have to initially do the planting.
Right.
Yeah. And the rest is depending upon the soil and all those other individuals that are going to come into play. Yeah.
Are you actually planting something physically?
Am I what?
Are you actually planting seeds as well?
Actually, I have some seeds that I've been getting some moon energies from that I'm going to be using because I've taught indigenous farming everywhere but here in Yuma. Now, I had a beautiful place in Winter Haven, a big organic garden there. Probably about 6 years ago. But because I had been doing a lot of traveling and stuff like that, I just wasn't giving attention to my gardens like I thought they should have. So I'd stopped. And so with this new raised bed gardening and in-ground gardening practices that I'm going to do, yeah, I have seeds right now that I've been getting moon energy, also moon water energy, because that's what I'm going to use the first energetically charge the seeds up with the same moon energy that they sat under.
What does that mean to you?
Using that water.
The moon energy. What does that mean to you?
Well, it's just more energetically. It enriches the seeds. Now, what I do is that I always place the 3 seeds at a time. Now, in the moon, when I'm doing getting the seeds moon energy, I put out a piece of paper or whatnot, and I usually put it by a window so that the wind doesn't blow it away. But I put 3 seeds together. Might be 30 seeds or whatever, but I put 3 in each group, so that energetically, all these 3 seeds receive this moon energy. Now, when I was a little boy, we were taught that you plant 3 seeds because you want to put some friends in there. You don't ever want to go through life alone. So you plant 3 seeds in there, right? And the reason why I use special water, or I like to have my hands on the water that's coming out of the spigot, is because when we were little boys, we took water from a sacred spring and initially watered, moisturized those seeds before we planted them, right? From a special spring. And so, as it turns out, I believe it was a European scientist uh, came across the exception of the seeds have a suicide gene.
Hmm.
So that and he did planted 3 seeds at a time, the 2 weakest seeds would die and all the energy that they held would give to the stronger seed. And when you put the moon water on it, it enriches it even more. So that ensures to me my expectations of growth and abundance. And I forget I was at some conference one time and I was telling them about this and whatnot. And after the conversation, after the talk was over, yeah, I sat at a table to have lunch and they converged and basically said, they told me this scientist, they were all scientists, uh, uh, that what I had said was this Swedish guy had, came up with this concept and they understood it scientifically and academically. But when I talked to them about it, it brought it to life. But that's what I think that's the value of that moon energy.
Hmm.
It enriches the seed.
Enriches.
Mm-hmm. To its high expectation of being abundantly producing as well.
How do you do that? How do you enrich the seed with do you just leave them out at night or somewhere like
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Now normally if it's normally I put them by a window because I don't want the animals to come or the wind to blow them away.
Yeah.
Now sometimes if like grass seed, I'll just put it in a glass container. I'll put them all in a glass container and let them be out for the whole moon cycle. And then I just throw them out,
Hmm.
wherever I want it to grow. But if it's more, heirloom seeds, then I'm a little bit more cautious with. I respect and honor them.
What do you do with them?
And then I plant them after that. Yeah. And I don't. Well, I'm into no till. So I just barely lay them on the top of the ground, and I might have some composting material that I just lightly cover them with them. Make sure I water them down with my finger on them, praying, talking to them, singing, and then let the nature take her course.
Hmm.
Uh, and in permaculture, there are certain principles and practices that we're taught. And to me, when I was going to some of these meetings, there was a lot of debate, right way, wrong way, principles. And I didn't want to get involved with that. So I just created my own way based on what my grandfather and my dad taught me. And then as I started doing that, and then I started reading about all the other indigenous practices worldwide, which were basically the way I was taught to do it.
What are some of the key things about that way?
The real key is expectation and abundance. If you don't have it, it ain't going to happen. It doesn't make a difference how great your seed is. That's key. The next would be the quality of the seed and the water.
It's really like quantum physics, right? Is your intention.
Yeah, exactly.
Creates the experience. Yeah.
And you're giving that seed, which and many times we think it's a lifeless form, but it's alive, even in that dry state. It's still alive. It's almost like
Mm.
like being asleep. So when I tell people, when I'm not teaching you anything new, that's already in you. And so I'm just awakening you to what you already know. Same way
Right.
with the seed.
Right. And that expectation and that path and your intention as well is allowing that seed to birth itself into that way of being. And it could be
Hmm.
another human as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um,
we,
and if not being in a physical form, at least in a spiritual connection. And that's really where life is all about. So we honor their spirit, and that spirit honors ours. And as we were taught, they become our children. They recognize us. They recognize our voice. So they draw the best they can to enrich our life.
mm.
Yeah. And
So you're going to plant those seeds somewhere there? You said you planted.
yeah, I'm gonna. My friend Yoli and her husband Ruben, the woman I share the store Madre Terra with, we're gonna do beds. I'm going to do a raised bed, which by the way is just a recycled old tub, big, bathtub, and then I'm going to put one in ground, and we're going to be planting flowers that she's going to be using in ceremony, and then some vegetables for her families that we could present at, dinners and stuff like that. And she's got a big backyard, and eventually we're going to escape that with cacti. And she's making us. She has a space in the backyard where she holds ceremony, temazcals, which is basically a sweat lodge. So that's what I'm going to be doing with her. And then if other people want me to do that at their home, then that's what I'll do as
But as
well. And
part
so
of
it's
your
nothing.
seed, I'm asking though, as part of the water, the water thing, and you said that you're doing the seed walk, and then I asked you, are you actually planting seeds? I'm just wondering if there would be some other location besides, no, for the seed
Not that
walk.
I not,
Okay, okay,
not that I know of.
okay, okay.
Now somebody might come like you or somebody
Right,
else, and they say simply, I'll
right,
say, hey, well, why don't you work on that?
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
I could show you a way, and why don't you do it?
Right,
You know,
right.
uh, and that's what sharing's all about. Yeah, I mean, I've tested bad soil and still had good crops. I planted stuff in clay that can't grow, and it grows. And a lot of it also depends on the way you water. Especially if I flood irrigate. When I was in Winter Haven, I was in an area where the water flowed from the east to the west. Now, all the fields were, their roles were from the north to the south. Now, I know that water has a memory, and the memory in the natural course of the river was from the east to the west. So when I watered, I made what they call these waffle gardens, right? And so I would water with a hose, let it run uh, from the east side. And then eventually it would flow from one waffle to the next and end up on the west side. Now, the east side held seeds and plants that didn't require a lot of water. And the west side was where I'd be growing my squash and my corns because they required more water, right? Uh, so once they all got flooded, and I turned off the water, and eventually the water from the east would slowly make its way underground to the west, right? Because it remembered the natural flow of the river. And that way I got the best. I felt in my mind that I was honoring the highest good of that water in its natural memory. And I wouldn't have known this unless I was working on a wetlands project where they took flew a plane over and took a X-ray of this portion of the river we were working on, and the imagery came up where the landscape still remembered how wide this river really was. And so that's where I got the idea of following the direction of
The river.
the natural course of the water.
Mm-hmm.
And then where I got the idea of, well, the waffle gardening has always been part of the Pueblo culture in New Mexico. But I made these little like dams, which I did a study on Machu Picchu. And they basically watered from the top down. And they had like these little dams where the water, when the top step got full, it would go into the next and into the next until it made its way down the mountainside. You know, all those steps you see in Machu Picchu, they had these little dams. So when the top one got full, it flowed down to the next. And again, it was following the course of gravity. And so that's where I kind of came up with this crazy ass system of this is how I'm going to practice. And it works. So I'm going to even demonstrate with the raised bed how this is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And in indigenous farming, the first thing you do is you observe nature. You watch the direction of the sun, the direction of the wind. If you're in need of a water source, how does that flow? All that stuff. So you have to. You just don't go in and say, "This is what I'm going to do." You have to honor the scape or the landscape of the land. So even when you're developing, you don't intrude on it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of in the permaculture community. They have an idea, boom. You know, they basically dominate. You know, their idea. I fall in flow with nature.
Right.
Yeah. And if you can't grow anything, vegetables and stuff like that because the soil might not be rich. Well, there's cacti, so there's always another thing you could grow. And of course, in permaculture, the big thing is to be able to help that land, that your garden to sustain you. And so, if you can't grow other stuff, then you can grow, cacti and indigenous plants that are from this area. So you're still asking the soil to give you the highest quality that soil can provide. And with the monetary value of where water is going to be coming into the next, 5 to 10 years, it's going to be very expensive. So you want to get the highest value of the water that you can. And in some places around here, if yes, these people are insistent on having a garden, then I have them dig down a foot, throw some clay in there, and cover it back up with sand, so that clay will keep the water from just draining deeper into the soil, to the sand. And in the raised bed, of course, I put debris at the bottom and cardboard boxes, and then the composting and the topsoil on it. But that's how that works with the water and stuff. So there's a real honorable connection that if I honor those seeds, that water, then it's going to honor me. There was one time I was growing trees, mesquite trees, and there was a group of pastors. And I told one guy, "Yeah, I got these trees, man. I'd like to give them to some churches." So one day he comes over with those 5 of them, and the whole time they're on the property, they're talking about was during I think it was during like when we first went into Iraq. But they were walking around my gardens and my trees talking all this war stuff, hate stuff.
Mm.
I told them to stop. Well, I said, yeah, my trees, my plants, they don't hear shit like that, you know. And if you're going to be around here talking that stuff, then you're not welcome here. And you can't have my trees.
Did they go away and come back?
None of them came back. Except for my friend Bill, who was, a friend of mine anyway, and he was laughing about the whole thing, like, I was wondering when you were going to say something, Yeah. So, and in a sense, that's the way I honor when they start producing, fruits and whatnot or vegetables. I make sure that the people that it goes to that they understand, the kind of love and attention I put into it. And a lot of them will say, it tastes better. Whatever you're doing, man, what kind of fertilizer you're giving? Nothing, just love and water.
Love and water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's where I'm at presently. Well, we've been talking for a while.
I know. Yeah.
Time went by.
I know.
Yeah, I need to get ready. I'm going to go into the store today. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I usually start getting ready about 11 o'clock.
All right. Now, what name are you going by? Are you still like Tatas'juanna is still your name? Are you?
Yes,
What are you going by?
Tatas'juanna.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, just this past January, I was told to start carrying that persona again.
Mm-hmm.
Because for the longest time, it was hard to believe that, that I had that high title of peacemaker.
Yeah.
And then over the past 6 years, I got deeper into my heart and realized that all of us are peacemakers, and so it's made it a little bit more easier to speak in let's say the persona of Tatas'juanna. Now, by the way, when I speak to the ladies in the tribe, that's the persona I talk to them.
Mm-hmm. 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 Now, you mentioned a lot of Pueblo teachings now. Is that because of your connection with these ladies, or?
Well, that's my cultural background.
I thought you were Tewa.
That's all. That's all Tewa. That's all Pueblo.
Tewa is
Hopis. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Tewa and Hopis are Pueblo?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, the ladies, they basically are, a lot of them are the Mesoamericans. So originally, we Hopis and Puebloans came from Mesoamerica. Some came up the Rio Grande. Some of us in
Well,
our
that's what I was
story
feeling.
went
Yeah.
through Belize and then went through the Gulf of Mexico, came up from Galveston, and both migrations ended up in the Four Corners area.
Oh.
And now there's even a new theory that we came up through the Colorado River as well. That some of us left, went around the Baja of, or went through the Gulf of the Sea of Cortez, and then came up through the Colorado River.
So then, really, at the roots, aren't you the same lineage as these ladies?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they've been awakening to it, so it's easy for them to understand and accept something that's been encoded at them anyway. And I just say something and it just like wake up.
Right.
And I've learned more from them than in this past year than any of my teachers. Yeah.
Do you call yourself a shaman?
They call me a shaman.
Yeah. So that's
Uh,
interesting to
I,
me.
I,
Like, no, when
I
when
just
yeah.
I just call myself a holy man.
Okay.
I do have practices and rituals that I do shamanically. You know, I might, as in case about 4 years ago, I was down in the state of Chihuahua, and I was with a group of shamans from Argentina, Brazil, Peru, all through Mexico, in the town of Guaguchi in the state of Chihuahua. And we were in ceremony, and some of the things that they were doing, which I had never done before, I just, for some reason or the other, magically just started working with them, adding to that, or they were, or I would do a ceremony and they would step in and work with me. And that's
What is
when we realized that we were just connected. We were connected.
what does that mean to you to be a shaman? And I'm asking you this because, this is the thing about in the consciousness about how people that are not of indigenous background, using that word is not an appropriate thing. And for
And by
me,
the way,
yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
for me, because I feel like I was born to that path as a medicine woman, and through my own understanding of my lineage, that I found out through my research, right, about my ancestors, that that it's really a spiritual connection to nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I use that word. I mean, there's a Ukrainian word, which is mofarka, which is very specific to the Carpathian Mountains, right? But
Yeah.
that's not where my ancestors came from. However, I still feel it, right? So I'm looking for the word, right? And in English, yeah.
The English word will not serve any good at all. I would go back to the word you just expressed.
Mofarka.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because shaman is a colonial title that they put on us.
Right.
We're known as holy people, medicine people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I don't want to get into all that controversy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know it all comes to that, which is a common ancient connection that all human beings have to nature.
Yeah. And when you go back and study your cultural history, that's your connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
much so. Very, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you use the name that comes from your culture, it gives you the more power and energy of that word, of that status, you might say. And when you honor that way, I think sometimes all of a sudden we just get this download of information of the status of who we are. Now, there are times when I'm talking to people, as you can see, sometimes I'm looking away because I'm waiting for some input that's going to come that just like I was going to tell you, go find out who you are and what you are and your cultural background, and then you brought it up.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's what I teach them. Don't you come to me, and I'm going to direct you back to finding out culturally where you're connected, how indigenously you're connected with that, and then that's when we can understand that we're just the same. We're all the same.
Right.
Mm-hmm. There's no division. There's no higher status. We're all one. That's why I was going to the point with working with all these shamans that I had never met before, and we're doing the same practices under the influence of peyote.
Right.
And that again, that was divine. That was the nature connection.
So shaman, medicine man, woman, holy man, woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I had a group of people who kept calling them witches. They're calling themselves witches. That's a colonial bullshit title.
Right. In Ukrainian,
No,
the
don't
word
go.
is the Ukrainian word is vedma, and it comes from vid, Sanskrit, which is to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to know is power.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or influence,
But that's
depending on how we.
that word is also like a colonial word here in the culture there, vedma. It's like one of those strange things.
Yeah. When you try to try to define it and make it seem some type of understanding in a Western sense, what you just can't do it
Exactly.
because there is no life in it. That's why you have to go back to the root words and live under those words. Now, when I learned the definition of fear, yeah, there was a Sanskrit word that came to it, but that I didn't need to use. I didn't need to say it because I understood it completely. I just need to live my life to the fullest. That's what fear is. Do not be afraid. You know, uh, you might say I even kind of uh, I used to do a lot more reading than I do now. And I had a good friend of mine and was an avid reader like me at one time. And I said, "Hey, Kenny, man, I noticed you're not reading it anymore." He goes, "You know what, John?" He goes, "I started to think that the older I get, that the more reading I do, if I start losing memory, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to remember what I forgot." That's when I backed off of,
Right.
the practice.
Right. Well, you're getting
And made sense to me.
everything you need to know. It comes to you anyway.
Yes.
So the book is
Yeah.
just a tool. That's it.
Yeah. 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 There's no lacking. And how do we know the truth when we read it? I believe because we've had a past life experience with it. That's why when we learn a truth, boom, it's alive in us already. Because I believe we've practiced it and learned it in a past life or a
So,
parallel dimension, and we don't even want to get into that one yet.
right.
The spokes of a wheel.
So something just came to me, and the sentence is, "We are all Earth people,"
Mm-hmm.
and it's just the role of some of us to help others remember that.
Exactly. Uh, and divine beings encased in all different forms of matter, which is really an expression of the richness of humanity and life, all these different forms, which really is, if we were taught right, to show how rich we are. We're not taught.
Do you have a word of affirmation in your culture that it's like amen?
Oh,
Oak?
that means, it's, I agree. My heart bears witness.
Oak.
I recognize you. Oh,
Oak?
oak.
Oak.
Let's say OAK. Oak.
Oak.
Yeah. Uh, that means I bear witness. From here, somebody's talking something. Let's say like if we were at a meeting and elder was talking story about what's going on in family or the community. Those who are witnessing and agreeing with what he's saying, instead of adding our 2 cents, we say, "Oh, he said enough for us. He's telling the truth." See, that's what it is. I agree. And in those cultures, it's honoring, you know, the elder. Yeah, that's the word. Oh. I have my lady friends who are basically using Tewa terms when I talk to them. I say, wait, that's the way a man says it. Then I have to teach them, this is the way lady says it.
How does a lady say it then?
Sometimes it's way, let's see, I believe the ladies say, ooh-wee.
Oui,
Yeah.
oui,
Ooh-wee.
oui,
Ooh-wee.
oui.
Yeah. 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 That's, that in a sense too is saying yes, or I agree, all those things. And even right now, those words that I'm using, that they've even lost some value in, you know, in trying to define them in an English way. Yeah. There's like a word that is tihanutu, means you know better, right? Like when I had my little children, I would, instead of jumping on their butt, I would say tahanutu. That means you know better, allowing them to correct themselves, right? But now the word is do, and that means enough. Tihanutu was a whole different war than just do, enough. So the translations of the words are changing a little. And you know, my grandmother and even my dad and them, they although they taught me Tewa and some Hopi, uh, basically they were teaching us that they're progressive. So they were teaching us, you find a language that you'll be able to communicate with everybody. And so, born in this country, English happens to be the dominant language that we were taught. So you know, that's how I. And then I started seeing how that language didn't have the power and the creative force that a language should have. And then that's when I started looking at, you know, more indigenous definition and meaning, giving back the power to the word. Mm-hmm. Okay, we good now?
You were good.
All right, sweet one.